What's up, everybody? It's your boy Season. So today we're going to be taking a look at the AMAKUNI Kizin Genesic GaoGaiGar. This is one that I've actually been wanting to review for a while, but I never got around to it. So today is the day that we're going to be taking a look at this. So let's not waste any more time. Let's go. So let's see what we get inside the box. Now, of course, this guy has been on display for a couple of years, so he's not in here, but let's just see what else we get. So of course we get a manual here. So we get that. This is where Genesic GaoGaiGar would be normally. Looks like he's got the Heaven or Hell hands, the gadget tool hands there. I've got another one up there for some reason. So you got that. This is where his backpack would be. You get that there. And then you get this giant stand there. So that's a lot bigger than most Sentinel stands that we get. And actually, I don't think I've ever taken this out of its plastic. So that's pretty much what you get. So pretty simple stuff there. So now we'll take a look at Genesic GaoGaiGar himself. So let's take a look at this Genesic GaoGaiGar. Now, the thing about this guy has actually been made a couple of different times. That's how good this mold was, and we'll kind of get into that as we go throughout the review. But I would say, generally speaking, very, very good as far as detail is concerned. I've never been a fan of Genesic GaoGaiGar's feet. They're just, it's very, I guess, like eagle talon-like, but you do have that. So he looks really, really good. Those do spin as well, so that's pretty cool there. So I really like this guy. This is actually one of my favorite GaoGaiGars that I own. So he looks amazing. A lot of attention to detail here, even on the back there with the tail there. We'll kind of go through that in the accessories section. Those move? Not really, but they do move up and down, or in and out, I should say. So you do have that, but looks really, really spectacular. Really good. So he's got a lot going on here, but I would say the detail on this one is very, very good. Probably one of the better ones that I've seen even to this day, because this is a little bit older of a mold. So I really like it though. So let's take a look at Genesic GaoGaiGar's accessories. In this set, he does not get hardly any of his gadget tools. So this will be pretty easy to go through. So first up, what you get is you kind of get, I've always considered this to be Genesic GaoGaiGar's hair. So it's the thing that goes on the back of his neck, but these do move. So you kind of got a little bit of range of movement there. And it's just this little piece that goes into the back there. Since this isn't a transformable unit, there's not really any difficult pieces to put on or anything like that, but you do get this here. And then next you get these set of hands. This is pretty much what happens in GaoGaiGar Final, where his hands get elongated. So, but you do get that. So pretty much it's the gadget tools that go on his hands and they make his nails longer, but you do get those. And here you get the Hell and Heaven hands. So this is when he clasps it together. So you do get those. These are one single piece. So you get that. We see that a lot with a lot of GaoGaiGar pieces. So you do get those. And here is the Gadget Gao. So this is pretty much his backpack. Now this doesn't turn into like a dragon or anything just because of the fact that this is not a transforming Genesic GaoGaiGar. So you kind of get that, but you got a lot of good detail in here. And as you can see, you can kind of, it'll move that. So it's got a lot of interlocking mechanisms in here that can kind of do that. And I think that looks amazing how they've done that. So you do have that there. These do kind of give you a little bit of flexibility here. And then for mine, when I bought this one had a piece that was always coming off, and it was this piece right here, and I still have it. And I tried to have it super glued and all kinds of stuff because it does move somewhat. So a lot of times it won't stay in there. So you may see that fall off during the review, but you have that, and then that's the connection piece for the backpack there. So you do have that, so you can see as that falls off, but you still have that. I'm not too worried about that, as generally speaking, you can't even see it most of the time, but you do have that. So really good here on the Gadget Gao part of his backpack. And then lastly, this is the tail for Gadget Gao. And of course you can see like the face there for the bird-like thing. Now, a lot of times this is where he would hold a lot of his tools in the GaoGaiGar Final, but you do have a little bit of flexibility here. So you can move up and down, you know, so you do have a little bit of flexibility there. I don't think this is a mouth or anything. So that's what you have there for the tail. So before we put his backpack and everything on, let's go ahead and go through his articulation. So first off, for his head, he does have up, way up. He has down a little bit, but that's more kind of like his just normal setting. He does have a little bit of side to side there, so he does have that. Let's see if he can go 360. Now, of course, with Genesic GaoGaiGar, he's got a lot of spiky parts, and so a lot of this can get in the way. Let's go ahead and see if we can turn that all the way. It does look like we can, so that's what you have for the head. For their shoulder part, he can lift this up, but not a ton. So that's really about all that you're gonna get there, which is unfortunate. So just because of that, this does move in and out. You do have a little bit of in and out as far as give. So you do have that. This piece will come up there. So you do have that for the shoulder also. So for the shoulder part here, this piece will come down. You just have to have nails, which I don't have. So we have this, so you can open this. If I can get that in there. So that will open there. So for the arm part, you can kind of get that a little bit more than I had it originally. So it will get almost shoulder's length, but not quite. Now, can you lift that up any higher? No, that's really coming from his midsection. For his bicep, you can get 360 out of that. So you do have that there. Let's take a look at his elbow. So you can move that all the way up there. So that's really good. So you've got a hinge here and at the bottom there. For his forearm, you're not really gonna get any movement there because he has the part for the protective shade on. So you're not really gonna get any movement. But what it is when you push this in like this, boom. So the protective shade comes out like that. So that's really, really cool. So that's a cool gimmick there. And then also this will come off at the joint so he can do the broken magnum. So you do have that. For his hands or wrist, he does have out, he does have in, he does have down, he does have up. So he's got a little bit. So he's got quite a bit here. So this is on a bull ball joint. You can also pull this off as well. So you do have that. For his hands, he actually does have articulated fingers. Just be careful because they are quite sharp. So he does have those. So those look really, really cool there. For the midsection, first he does have the mane. So these will move in, up and down there. So he does have a little bit of give there at the top. So let's see what he's got. So let's see if he's got any inwards. So he does have some downward movement there. Let's see if he's got outwards. So he can move that all the way up. So that's really, really good there. So you can kind of see that inner mechanism there in the midsection there. Does he have side to side? So it's right up at the top here. So he's got side to side. And then let's see if he can spin 360. Let's go ahead and get his arms out of the way here. So I would say no, but he's got between 45 and 90 degrees there. I probably wouldn't chance trying to move that any further off of that without breaking it. But he does have a decent range of movement. And then also I wanted to mention for the back, this is where his on and off switch is because he does have batteries. So you just have to unscrew this. I already have the batteries in there, of course, they've been in there for years, but you do have that in the back there. And then you can see the back of his head there. For the waist section, you do have these front skirts. They do move independently of each other. This part does not move. Let's take a look at the side there. So this will give you some forward and backward movement there. So you do have that. And then for the back skirt, he doesn't really have much here. For the leg parts, let's go ahead and move up this side skirt there so you can kind of see that. So you're not going to get a ton of movement in there. I would say about 45 degrees on there. So not that much there. Let's see what we can do when we lift him up. Head and lift that up there so you can see that. I would say, generally speaking, that's probably about what, 115, 120, maybe even 125 there. Let's take a look and let's see. Let's get his spikes out of the way. Let's go ahead and turn that knee there. So you do have that. So you've got a pretty decent V there. So it looks pretty good. And then for the front of the cap, I just wanted to show you one thing that Sentinel does very, very well is they do kind of like moving mechanisms when you do a lot of articulation. And so when you look at this, you can kind of see how that part slides in and out there. So I just wanted to mention that when you're moving the leg. So you do get really good articulation there. And now for the feet, the thing about Genesic GaoGaiGar's feet is that they're very unique because they're almost like eagle talons to me. So you don't have a ton of movement, you get a little bit, but that's really not going up all that much. So you do get that, you do get down. So you do get that on both ways. It will give a little bit as far as outward, not much inwards. You do get the nail parts, those will move as well. So kind of like he's clamping down on something. So you do have that, but not much articulation out of there. It doesn't have basic ankle structure, kind of like with a Gundam or something like that. And then you do have the ones for the bottom here or for the back. So you do have that. So that eagle talon will move as well. And then, but there's no movement up or down on this part. It's just the actual nail part there. So that's what we have for articulation. I would say that overall, his articulation is pretty good. I will say that it's good specifically because of the uniqueness of his design. He has a lot of spiky parts. He has a lot of things going on here. And so the fact that Sentinel was able to get this much articulation out of him, considering, I think is actually quite good. So I really don't have that many complaints. Of course, I would have kind of liked to have had a little bit more in the midsection there, but especially with the mane on and everything. But I think that overall it was pretty good. He just couldn't do a 360. So, you know, you do have that kind of like with the thighs. If we'd had a little bit more as far as the thighs are concerned, that would have been good as well. But I think overall, I think that they did quite well. Here we have Genesic GaoGaiGar fully assembled in all of his glory, and this looks amazing. I really like the detail that they have for this Genesic GaoGaiGar. This is in his classic, if you've seen GaoGaiGar Final, I Will Destroy You pose. It looks spectacular. There's not anything that I would say that is wrong as far as his aesthetic goes. The detail is great. Everything is great. He's got the wings fully expanded there. Also, if you take a look at the back, you kind of have like the eyes there. So really, really good work that Sentinel did here. Of course, we got the hair out here. So he looks awesome. And I think if you are a fan of GaoGaiGar, I would say, generally speaking, as of right now, this is still the one to get. I think it's better than Akumi Tech one and some of the other ones that have come out that replicate this design. But I think that overall, I think that this one is amazing. Now there's one more gimmick that Genesic GaoGaiGar has, which is his lighting gimmick. So we're gonna take a look at that. So let me cut off these lights real quick. All right, so now that we have the lights off, except for the back lights there, what we're gonna do, we're gonna have to turn him around because there's no way to get to the light switch without taking the backpack off. So let's go ahead and take this off here. Just like that. That's where the light is there. So we'll just switch that to on there. And then let's put this guy back on. And then let's turn him around and boom. Now, you may have trouble seeing this because his lights are very, very weak. One thing that I think that Sentinel does not do very well is the lighting. You can see it a little bit around the mouth, the eyes, and Genesic GaoGaiGar's eyes there. And he's got a little bit for the like the back mane or the hair part there. So he's got a little bit there, but it is not very easy to see. And let's see if we can bring him closer so you can kind of see that a little bit better. So, and then let's actually cut off the backlights so you can see totally. So we'll be in total darkness here. So as you can tell, it's not very strong. And these are brand new. These take 2 LR41 batteries. So those are pretty generic for most figures that I own. So I did have to swap out the older batteries, but overall, it's still not very bright. And that's one thing that I think CCS does a lot better than Sentinel, but that's what you have for his lighting. So let's go ahead and click all these lights back on. So overall, I think if you are going to have a lighting gimmick, I think that you want to do it properly. And I think that Sentinel, that's kind of like a throwaway or something that they do maybe at the last minute. They're like, oh, let's just throw a lighting gimmick in there real quick. And I just don't like it because it's not bright enough. It's not bright enough in total darkness, and it's definitely not bright enough for regular light. So that's unfortunate as far as his lighting gimmick, but that's what we've got for Genesic GaoGaiGar. So now we're going to do some size comparisons for this Genesic GaoGaiGar. Now, if you want a good reading as far as how tall he is, I would say from his feet to the top of the crown of his head is probably about 8 1/4 inches. And then for the hair part, that goes roughly around 10 2 1/4 to 10 3/8 inches there. So he is a decent size, not the biggest that we've seen, but he's definitely not small. So what we're gonna do as far as size comparisons, we're gonna bring out some of the other Brave Sentinel figures here. And so next we're gonna bring out the AMAKUNI Kizin Great Might Gain. So we kind of have him next to him. Let's go ahead and bring him out there so we can kind of see them together. And as you can see there, I would say that Great Might Gain is bigger than Genesic GaoGaiGar. He's actually in a crouching pose and he's still bigger than Genesic GaoGaiGar, but these are probably about, I would say between 4 and 5 years apart as far as design is concerned. And so I can see now why Sentinel decided to make this Super Akumi Kizin Genesic GaoGaiGar and make him a little bit bigger because he is small in comparison to these two. But these are actually from the same line. So what we'll do, let's go ahead and put Great Might Gain in the back there, and we'll kind of have Genesic GaoGaiGar, and you can kind of see how much bigger Great Might Gain is than Genesic GaoGaiGar. But for the other one, we're going to bring out the Metamorphose Super Fire Dagwon. So these are very different, even though they're all Sentinel, they're actually from different design teams. So you have the Metamorphose, those are usually always going to be transformations, and the AMAKUNI Kizin ones are not. So these are very different as far as aesthetic, even though I would say the detail and stuff is still very much similar. And let's go ahead and move him out because they're all taking up, since they all have very wide wingspans. And then let me move and put Super Fire Dagwon in the back there, just so you can kind of see him. Get his sword out of the way. I don't want him to knock anybody over. But so you do have them, and then let's go ahead and stand him back up there. So as you can see, the Genesic GaoGaiGar is very, very small in comparison to Great Might Gain and Super Fire Dagwon. And I think that that is very interesting to see. Now, as far as which one do I prefer, that's a very interesting question, because I think there's nothing that this Genesic GaoGaiGar does badly. It's kind of a sign of when he was designed. And I think that's the reason why they've kind of redone it so many times. But I'll get into that aspect of it in final thoughts. But I would probably say the Great Might Gain between these two, especially since they're in the same line, I would say the Great Might Gain is a better figure just because it's a little bit bigger. They did a little bit more with the neck part for Great Might Gain. So even though I had some problems with it, I think that there's a little bit more as far as what you get with Great Might Gain versus Genesic GaoGaiGar, because he doesn't have any of his tools or anything. And of course, we'll get into that in final thoughts as well. And to me, the Super Fire Dagwon is kind of in its own class. Now, we're supposed to be getting AMAKUNI Kizin Great Bangan, but we have not seen a prototype of that yet. We saw the announcement a couple of years ago, and we have yet to see a prototype on it. So, but I'll talk about that in final thoughts as well. So now let's get into final thoughts. So last thoughts on this guy, Genesic GaoGaiGar. Now, this is one of my favorite pieces. I probably had this piece pretty much since it first came out. I actually had to buy this guy twice due to something that happened, but I'll get into that story some other day. The thing about this sculpt is that it's been re-released a couple of different times. And the reason why is because it was so popular, and this one was very expensive when it first came out. So the Chinese made a bootleg on this one, and it was really, really good. And then Sentinel came out with their own, and that's how they developed the AMAKUNI Tech line, because those are models, and that was made for this sculpt as well. And then they did a gold version of that AMAKUNI Tech one, and now we're getting the new Super AMAKUNI Kizin Genesic GaoGaiGar that comes out in a couple of months. So I think that this sculpt is really, really good. Now, it does have some limitations. It is kind of its time. And so even though his articulation is quite good considering the design that he has a lot of sharp parts. So of course, this is another one that you probably wouldn't want to have a child mess with because there's a lot of pointy pieces. But the articulation is decent. I would say that the drawbacks for me on this guy is really like the lighting is really bad. I don't like it. It's very, very weak. And I wish it wasn't, but it is. And it's too bad. I think that the Might Gain one is better as far as the lighting, even though that one only lights up the eyes. So, you know, you have that. And then also the fact that this guy does not come with any of his weapons. The only one that he really has is the Hell and Heaven hands. That's it. He does not get the wield knife. He does not get any of like the missile for the mouth and all of that stuff. He doesn't get any of that. And I think that that is kind of messed up, but that is typical for Sentinel. Sentinel is very, very expensive. And so you do have to be cognizant of that. And with this guy, I would say, generally speaking, that you want to make sure that you get the option set with this guy. So that's unfortunate. So I'm not going to beat around the bush here. So out of 10, I'm going to give this guy like an 8.8. I think that he's good. I don't think he's better than the AMAKUNI Kizin Great Might Gain. I think that there's a little bit more that you get with great mic gun than you do with this GaoGaiGar, but his articulation is fine and everything else that he has is good. And I think that the sculpt is really, really good. And so they've definitely gotten a lot of traction out of this sculpt, and I think that they did a really good job there. So that's what I've got for you guys today. Thank you guys for watching the video. If you could like, comment, subscribe to the channel, I would appreciate it. Send this one out to all of the GaoGaiGar fans, and I will catch you in the next one. Peace.